Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous. And here's her story. Dear Ollie, this letter isn't so much about asking for advice, but more about sharing an experience I had at my job with what I think is a male borderline. I also sent a contribution and figured at the very least this would be entertaining because this dude was batshit crazy. I'm going to ask you to keep me anonymous this time for obvious reasons. It all started in March of this year when I started a new job. The building where I work is an old school which had been converted into offices, so they have to squeeze new employees in wherever they can. This is how I ended up stuck in a relatively isolated office with just me and this other guy. For the first couple of weeks, nothing struck me as particularly unusual. I thought this guy might be a little off, but I don't like to judge people. Looking back, though, there were several red flags early on. One thing that irritated me right away was that he liked to stand over me as I was typing while staring at my computer screen. I asked him what he was doing once, and he said it was just because he was new to the job and wanted to learn, and I had experience in the field. I still found it creepy as hell. A couple of days after this, he made a mocking comment to me about my salary and how low it was. I was wondering how the hell he knew, but then it dawned on me he must have been leaning over my shoulder as I was writing corresponding emails with my temp agency and must have seen my salary on one of the forums. He then said to me, I notice things like that because I'm a superficial fuck. Yeah, he was sizing you up. He was sizing you up. Another conversation we had was a conversation about our birthdays when we realized we were both Scorpios. As a person with common sense, I realize this has absolutely no bearing on whether people have anything in common or not. No, but it tells you whether or not they can hold a grudge. And boy, as a Scorpio, I can tell you I can hold a grudge. He then told me that every woman he has ever dated has been white and a Scorpio, both which describe me. He was Asian and told me that there was not a chance in hell that he would ever date an Asian woman because they're all toxic. He also started telling me how typical he was of his zodiac sign, telling me that he is intense, OCD, emotional, takes everything personally. He also told me that I couldn't possibly be a Scorpio because I'm too laid back and level-headed. Maybe I'm just sane, who knows? Both of us were underemployed at the time and not particularly happy with our jobs. When I mentioned early on that I was still looking out for other opportunities, he would say to me mockingly, you're never going to get another job. He's basically his Asian mother. The reason why he hates Asian women is because his Asian mother berated him his whole life. That's why. He has mommy issues. That's why he's a male borderline. That's what his mother used to say. Why did his mother used to say that? Because she was probably trying to son husband him, so she can keep him close. But now what she developed was her in a male body as a Scorpio. So that's always fun to be around. One major red flag when I was working there for about 3 weeks, and he said to me, you're the first person I've worked with that I've gotten along with for this long. I think that was the start of a series of love bombing attempts, all of which were an epic fail. When he said this to me, I told him that was a bit disturbing since I'd only been working there for 3 weeks. Then he said to me, what do you mean? What, do you mean to tell me that you can get along with people for longer than that? I told him, actually, yeah, 3 weeks is like nothing. Then he told me that I must have no judge of character since I can go a full 3 weeks without having a falling out with someone. This seems totally backwards and doesn't make any sense. Even though I haven't seen this guy in a couple of months, I still want to vomit at the mere thought of him, since the way he treated me was a combination of both sexual harassment and just plain bullying. He started trying to get me to meet up with him outside of work without my husband, asking me if I wanted to go out to dinner or to a painting class or a concert, then told me how he really wanted me to meet his son, as if I had already been dating for a few weeks. The fact that I'm married didn't seem to discourage him at all. It was really creepy. He also put my husband down and sort of attacked my taste in men in general. He told me that he noticed that I don't seem to like metrosexual types, which is what he considers himself to be. For those unfamiliar with the term, it describes straight men who are mistaken for a gay dude to being a bit high maintenance and appearance conscious. Remember what I said to you about his mother? Son husbands are usually closeted to begin with, or swing both ways. This is a woman in a man's body. They also like to consider themselves to be more cultured than the average American male. I guess my type skews to rugged all-American. I don't know. I never really thought about it. He asked me if this was because metrosexual types are usually smarter and less likely to put up with your bullshit. So now apparently I'm not only unsophisticated, but I'm a high-maintenance bitch who likes to dominate dumb men. I told him that my husband is actually very intelligent, and he said I never said he wasn't, but he definitely implied it with his comment. He also told me that when he first saw me, he assumed I was a girl next door type, but I actually seem like a bitch. Do you think this was his way of saying, when I first saw you, I thought you'd be a pushover type who would put up with my bullshit and you're not? No, he goes for the type of woman who you insult. And see, what he's doing, you can actually pick up women like this, believe it or not. Because there are women who are so emotionally damaged and have such low self-esteem. Any type of attack on them, criticism on them, triggers them to be so pleasing that, oh my God, this guy don't like me. And trust me, it works. That's what he was doing. Trust me, that's what he was doing. Perhaps the most infuriating thing about this guy was all the narcissists, all the narc tactics he would use in everyday conversation. He was so desperate to put me down or tell me I was wrong that he would often contradict other put-downs he had previously given me, even within the same day. Here are some examples. As I mentioned before, we were both sort of in crappy jobs and not particularly happy with where we were working. If I would complain about something that happened either at this job or my previous job, he would say something like, well, that's just the working world and how it is. You need to change your perception and stop being so negative. He would then tell stories about his friends who work in construction, which has no relevance to where we were working. I don't know how many metrosexuals work in construction, and how regularly they put up with racial slurs from their bosses on almost a daily basis. He's like a social justice type, too. He would then say things like, that's just how the working world is and how bosses always operate and your perception is wrong. When I would tell him about past work experiences or my family relationships, he would always tell me I was wrong about a certain person or a certain situation when he wasn't even there. Sometimes he would actually raise his voice towards me when trying to prove the other person's innocence and that I was somehow the aggressor in all situations. It was as if he actually emotionally invested in these situations that had nothing to do with him. Conversations with him were always a complete mindfuck because of all the flip-flopping and contradictions and trying to make me look like an incompetent fool. One day he would tell me that I was negative and had unrealistic expectations about the working world, while the next day he would mock me for being a doormat and what I put up with from other people. He criticized my work one time when I told him that some minor detail didn't matter, then said that's not my personality. When I get an assignment, I want to do a good job. I take pride in my work and how I present myself, implying that I do sloppy work and don't give a shit. Literally a few hours later that same day, he noticed that I was working a lot on a particular spreadsheet. He then said to me, I don't know why you're working so hard. It's not like anyone in this company gives a shit about you. This mindfucker was so infuriating that I wanted to turn around and punch him. He also liked to tell me that I wasn't going to get in trouble because of other people's mistakes, because shit rolls downhill and you're at the bottom of the barrel in this place. He seriously said that to me. After this comment, I snapped and told him I was sick of his contradictory bullshit and how he keeps telling me I'm excessively negative and it's all in my head. And then he tries to drill into my head how crappy my job is and how everyone there sees me as a piece of shit. He then flipped the whole thing around on me and said, well, I don't know what the hell to say to make you happy because you're always so miserable and complain about everything. I don't know why you're even engaging in this guy. He would also complain constantly about our immediate supervisor, how she was a narcissist and was constantly bullying him. He was like a broken record, repeatedly freaking out over minor things, saying over and over again how stressed he was. I must have heard I'm so stressed about 50 times a day. That's not a thing a guy says, I'm so stressed, I'm so stressed. That's a female line. You're working with a woman in a man's body, and that's why you're so mind-fucked by it. If this was coming from another woman, you'd completely understand it. Other than the sexual harassment, obviously, you still got to deal with that. But this type of negativity and shit, this is why it's mind-fucking you. He would also go outside to chain smoke every half hour because of the anxiety that the bosses and co-workers were supposedly causing him. He would slam doors really loud everywhere he went around the building and say it was because he was stressed, like a woman does slamming cabinets in the kitchen. This is why it's freaking you out. You've never seen a man act like this. He even did this when meetings were going on in the same room with no consideration for other people. I told him not to slam doors so loud because there was no reason for it, and his response was, I'm just an intense person, you'll get used to it. He would also apparently spit on company property while smoking outside. I know this because he mocked a coworker who told me I know this because he mocked a coworker to me who told him that they were not allowed to spit on company property while in the smoking area, as if this guy has some sort of nerd or rule enforcer for telling him that spitting in public property was wrong. How entitled do you have to be to feel like you could spit on company property and get away with it? I mean, that's disgusting. Another coworker also said that he saw him taking food from the table during a meeting that he wasn't even participating in. Definitely entitlement complex. I think he's also maybe trying to get fired as well. You know? He's trying to get fired. It seems like he might be trying to get fired because he doesn't really want to work, and he's really good at blaming other people for his fucking problems, so he probably wants to go back home to his mommy. He also told me that he was so stressed because of the job and his supervisors that he sat in his car for a half hour every morning before entering the building so he could meditate. I don't even know about anyone else, but I think it's pretty safe to say that the meditation ain't working. Of course, if I complained about anything, he would tell me that I was negative, needed to change my perception, and accept that that's just the working world. But then he's entitled to do all this bullshit when he gets the least bit stressed. The irony here is not lost on me. The main reason why I think this guy is borderline is that he over-exaggerates everything and needs to make drama out of every situation. He once snatched a document off my desk for which I was supposed to get signatures from management. I got in trouble with my supervisor for not doing my own work because she saw him with the document in another part of the building. I told her that he had just taken forms off my desk without asking, and that I never told him to do what he did. He overheard what I said to the boss and started what might be an Oscar-worthy performance. Again, remind you, this is a male. If this was a woman doing this, yeah, it would annoy you, but it sure wouldn't mindfuck you, would it? Because male borderlines are usually women trapped in men's bodies. Why? Because their mothers made him that way. His mother made him that way. That's why he hates Asian women, because he hates his mother. He hates all women, to be honest with you, but he really hates the Asian ones. He just takes out his anger on on white women. He said that the reason he took the document from me was not because he wanted to get me in trouble, because he wanted to help me out, but because he wanted to help me out with my work. He went on to say that he wanted to help because it's just part of who he is as a person, with over-exaggerated emotions, as if he were making a speech at the Miss America pageant. Woman trapped in a man's body. It was so transparent. Another time he snatched work off my desk when he was trying to convince me I was in trouble and I wasn't. This is what women do to each other. These are the type of mental games. There was a misunderstanding about a deadline, and I thought something had to be approved that day, but after talking to the project manager, it turned out this was wrong and the deadline was next week. Prior to me speaking with the project manager, my borderline coworker kept telling me I was going to get in trouble because the work wasn't done yet. When I told him that the deadline was wrong and that I had another week and nothing was wrong, he got extremely angry. He snatched the paperwork off my desk and said, "I'm going to go talk to Bob," and then stormed out of the room with my documents to go talk to the project manager himself. It was really obvious that he wanted to get me in trouble and got extremely angry when he found out I wasn't. It's like he thought that by him talking to the project manager, he was hoping to somehow convince him to get me in trouble. I also think by snatching the papers away from me and saying that he would talk to the guy himself, he was trying to insinuate that I was incompetent and can't talk to coworkers to understand when a deadline is and isn't. As I mentioned before, the first couple of weeks sitting in an office with this guy didn't seem that bad, but the harassment started to escalate over time. One time it was just me and him in the office when we had to shut the door because of a meeting going on next door. While the door was shut, he began attacking me over how I never express my emotions and how it's not fair. He tells me everything. What? What an emotional bitch. This baffled me because I don't know what there is to express since we're just coworkers and this is not a relationship. But maybe in his head we were. Who knows? As far as him telling me everything, it was all unsolicited information about his private life that I would rather not have heard. Then he started mocking people who he overheard talking in the meeting outside. This evolved into him making jokes about male co-workers jerking off in the bathroom. I told him, it probably turned him on too. I told him that I was going to take a walk down to HR if he didn't shut the fuck up. He then said, "Do they even have an HR department in this piece of shit company?" So he obviously didn't take me seriously. No, he did. I think he wanted you to go to HR. That's what he wanted. He wanted to get fired. He wants to get fired, collect unemployment, and have his mommy take care of him. He was goading you. He's giving this company. And sometimes you're in a company and can't get fired for shit because they're so incompetent. I've seen it. He then headed towards the door to walk out of the room, but before he did, showed me a picture on his cell phone of a woman from his neighborhood. It came within a foot of my face, made it really obvious he was trying to invade my personal space and say, "This is who I lost my virginity to," and walked out the door. He wanted you to go run down to HR and tell them he wanted to be fired. He wanted to be fired. You didn't realize this guy was trying to get himself fired the whole time. About 15 minutes later, he came back into the room with candy from the vending machine. He placed the candy on my desk and said, "You know I love you, right?" I couldn't take any more at this point. I told him to leave me the fuck alone and left the room. I don't remember 100%, but I think I went to work in the break room for the rest of the day. A day or two later, I went to HR to file a complaint. This resulted in me getting my seat moved, which I was very happy about. The funny thing is, when I went to HR to tell them what was going on, one of the women asked me if I was talking about the Chinese guy. I said yes I was, and she said they were just having a conversation how he creeps them out as well. So it's not just me. He was not part of the actual company, but was part of a consulting company that worked there, which is why they weren't 100% sure initially who he was. I told his boss from the consulting company what had been going on, but I think she thought I was exaggerating or was one of those whiny women who cry harassment all the time, so nothing really came of it. Unfortunately for him, I'm telling you, he wanted to get fired. As you could guess, Mr. Borderline was not happy about me getting my desk moved. As time went on, I noticed that he was starting to show up in random places around the building where I happened to be. One day I came out of the ladies' room and he was standing in the cafeteria doorway about 10 feet away, but didn't actually go in. As I walked past, he asked me where I was going, and I responded back to the office. And he just said, "I love messing with you," making it obvious that he had followed me to the bathroom from a distance. He would also conveniently show up in the cafeteria when I happened to be there, pretending to be engaged in conversations with other guys, but appeared to be just watching me. I guarantee you this is what his mother did to him. All of this. All of this. He would also conveniently show up in the cafeteria when I happened to be in there, pretending to be engaged in conversations with other guys, but appeared to be just watching me. One time, as I was heating up my food, I heard somebody whisper my name a few feet away and realized it was him watching me from behind a row of cabinets. Another time, when I was heading towards the door to leave the cafeteria, I noticed a laser pointing flashing on the door, which then moved to my body. I turned around and saw it was him about 30 feet away, flashing a laser pointing at me, trying to get the attention of the other guys at his table, trying to make me look like an idiot. A couple months later, I was out on vacation on a cruise. I think he got pissed, not only that I took a vacation, but that he didn't know about it. He texted me on vacation, wanting me to know where a document was. I answered it thinking that was going to be it, but he texted me again telling me I was supposed to scan the document and put it on the server. And isn't that what we used to do? This was total bullshit, since it was never my job to scan documents, and it's not what we used to do either. He was just making up some random bullshit to get me upset on my vacation and worry that I was going to get in trouble when I get back. I ignored the text. He just had to fuck with me on my vacation. Things got really weird when I got back from my vacation, and he seemed to have disappeared. I asked coworkers what happened to him, and they said they had no idea. He wasn't fired, and they knew of none. He wasn't fired that they knew of, and none of them have been able to get in touch with him all week. Even his boss didn't know where he was. At the end of the week, one of his bosses told a coworker of ours to stop by his house and see what was going on. When my coworker went to his house, Mr. Borderline's son answered the door and told him that his father had to go away for a few weeks and that he was on a business trip. Obviously, my coworker knew this was bullshit. When I spoke to him about it, we both came to the conclusion that the psych ward was the most likely scenario. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who saw that this guy was completely batshit crazy. I also found out from a female coworker he had been drawing penises on company documentation that he was emailing to some of the women who worked there. Maybe he knew he was about to get fired and had a mental breakdown. Who knows? He was trying to get fired. I'm telling you, he was trying to get fired. Trying to get fired. And what he's going to say, here it is. I'm telling you what's going to happen. As he's saying with the histrionics, and I'm stressed, and this and that, and this and that. Drawing penises, trying to get fired from HR. I'm telling you he was trying to get fired. Why? So he can turn around and sue the company and say they caused it all. That's why he was saying he was so stressed and abused, they made me work with this incompetent. That's what's going on. Sorry this letter was so long. I didn't realize how much material there was until I started writing it out. Looking back on the letter, I can't even believe I put up with this idiot for 2 months before filing a complaint. Also, I would appreciate any insight you may have into this guy's behavior. He probably does have some type of mental illness, but I think it's pretty safe to say that he's a cluster B as well, since he was such an instigator and obnoxious as hell. Thanks, Anonymous. I'm telling you. He's a woman trapped in a man's body. He hates Asian women because of his mother. He was trying to get fired from the company the whole time so he could set up for a mental break lawsuit. He may or may not be in a mental institute. Wherever he is, he's setting up to sue this company. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. That's why I was saying the whole he's trying to get fired, because he's setting you up for a lawsuit. All of this is to set people up for a lawsuit. He's not going to win. I don't think he's going to go anywhere, but that's what he's going to try. So, thank you for your contribution and your story. I hope that helps. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video just like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or you'd just like to make a contribution to the channel in general to help it expand, grow, and succeed, because that's always awesome, then you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.